The night was dark and heavy rain poured from the sky, the kind of rain that makes the world outside a blur of shadows and confusion. Mark had worked late and didn't leave the office until 11 o'clock. Unbeknownst to him, the exit ramp where he normally traveled was closed due to construction. He followed the endless detour signs until they led him outside the city limits. Mark was driving alone through an isolated stretch of highway, miles away from civilization. He needed gas, but the nearest town was still a considerable distance away. As he continued to drive, his car's gas gauge crept towards empty, and his heart pounded in sync with the intensity of the storm. Finally, the glow of distant gas station lights appeared on the horizon like a beacon of hope. Mark heaved a sigh of relief and steered his car into the small gas station. To his surprise, the place was brightly lit, and there was loud music blaring from the speakers on the overhang. However, there didn't appear to be an attendant on site, even though the lights were on inside the building. As he stepped out of the car and hurried to pump gas, he noticed two figures huddled by the ice unit next to the glass entrance. Their faces were hidden beneath the hoods of their rain-soaked jackets, but something about them felt unnerving. Mark tried to convince himself that they were just weary travelers seeking shelter from the rain, but his gut told him otherwise. He quickly looked away and shifted his focus on how to get out of the storm. In his mind, he mapped out the quickest route home. The pump clicked, and just as Mark turned to place the nozzle back in the stall, he was startled by the two figures standing close to him. It all happened in a flash. Mark did not have time to process how they suddenly appeared before him when he just saw them huddling by the building. They were just children. The taller one couldn't have been more than 10 years old, and next to her was another girl who looked to be 6. They both had very pale skin, but it was their eyes that sent chills through Mark's bones. Oh, their eyes! There was nothing there but blackness that stared deep into the depths of his soul, striking fear throughout his body. The older girl asked him, "We need to use your phone. Can we come inside?" Something about her voice left him paralyzed in that moment. Mark hesitated. Although every fiber of his being warned him to stay away from these children, he couldn't shake the guilt of abandoning two seemingly lost kids in the middle of the night. Thankfully, a truck pulled up from behind, and Mark snapped out of the trance. When he blinked, the two kids had vanished. The other driver, a rough-looking man with a ginger goatee and tattoo sleeves on his arm, called out to Mark in a loud, husky voice, "It's raining cats and dogs out here. I just heard on the radio that it took out a bridge. Stay safe, dude." Mark was too terrified to engage in small talk with a stranger. He jumped into his car and sped away, hoping to leave the entire creepy incident behind him. He struggled to keep his eyes on the road because the memory of those black, lifeless eyes stayed on his mind. It didn't help that the storm was getting worse. The rain came down in sheets and the headlights seemed to create more shadows ahead rather than light the way. Once in a while, there would be another motorist on the road coming at him from the opposite direction. They honked their horns angrily at him for swerving and driving in the middle of the road. Mark had been driving like a madman as he desperately tried to distance himself from that gas station where he encountered the two frightening, otherworldly figures. He was certain that they were not human, much less children. As Mark neared the intersection that marked the boundary of his subdivision, the storm was now miles away to the east. He felt safe again as he pulled into the garage and could hear Milo, the family husky, breathing hard on the other side of the door. Mark took off his shoes and stripped out of his work clothes. He was too tired to hear his wife complain about hopping into bed without showering first. It must have been close to 2 a.m. when he finally made it home. Mark was sleeping peacefully and undisturbed in his warm bed when he was lightly shaken by small hands tugging on his arm. He tiredly opened his eyes to see his 3-year-old daughter's face pressed up against his nose. "Daddy, knock knock," she whispered. "Oh, go to bed, Care Bear," he responded, but she persisted and tugged on his arm. He got out of bed and carried her downstairs into the kitchen to give her a glass of warm milk. "Daddy, knock knock," she repeated. It was followed by a quiet knocking at the front door. proceeded slowly to the front of the house. The knocking came again. He looked through the peephole and saw the same two childlike figures with black eyes. The taller one called from the other side. "We need to use your phone. Can we come inside?" Mark shouted at them. "No! You can't use my phone or come inside. Go away! You're not wanted here!" He scooped up his daughter into his arms and fled upstairs to the bedroom. That night he held on tightly to her and did not get a wink of sleep.